Robin Breden is an author, is my guest right now, and a really smart guy. And he drew my attention to a column which talked about the know-nothing elites. And if there's anything about that I want to know about, so he joins me now. Tell me about the thesis of this column that you sent out.
We're looking at a period of time when we're in the shallows of various revolutions that probably initiated late 1960s. There was a dreadful deceit around Vietnam, coming of age of the baby boomers, perhaps those people born 1944, 1960, 1962. Genuine need for change. They had people like Nixon, lied to by the leadership, the Democrat leadership on Vietnam, for example. There was no just war to be fought there. And they had tremendous number of MBAs and the
So all the smart people were doing that. There's no reason to bomb Cambodia. And yet, so the average person then started to rebel against the elites who were running.
I think it started then. And what you have is sort of the capture of university campuses, college campuses, and we're on the washing out of that after 30, 40, 50 years. When I was at OISE in the 1990s, very left-wing professors, but even they didn't understand the rising generation who were sitting in on classes. My seminar in history was taken over by a group that called them proponents of queer studies, and they were a queer-looking group. They were LGBT, whatever the rest of that alphabet, so it got you in trouble with Bell Media. Water under the bridge. And I said, look, they interrupted my class, sat in on my class for about 5 or 10 minutes. There were about 5 of them, ladies with shaved heads. And I said, when you've wrecked my class and ripped down this institution, what are you guys going to replace it with? And I was quite forceful, a bit Churchillian, and I said, 2 or 3 went off in tears. They didn't like me. But their major offense, Stephen, just to show the ignorance, was the word history. So I went home to my father Terentius and said, where does history come from? And he says, Robin, it's ancient Greek for knowing. It's got nothing to do, the problem was HIS, his story.
Which is so silly, but are we in a period of that now, where the mob, if you will, doesn't like what the elite's doing, and yet the average person is just disenchanted with everybody?
Well, the elite is almost totally disconnected with the average working guy. My garage mechanic, a Trinidadian, Roland, working 16, 18 hours a day in his garage, Monday through Saturday in Scarborough. So they've almost totally floated off like those balloons we grew up with in the 70s. And we see teachers, the TDSB, recently took their students out of class from grade 3 to 8 to a protest. And what were the chants? What were they chanting? Because the parents aren't supervising enough, as they would have your mother in your day, and my mother and Elizabeth in my day. And what were they chanting? They said Turtle Island, from Turtle Island to Palestine.
And teachers are saying this, telling their students to do this.
So they're being indoctrinated ideologically on stuff they don't have the maturity for. Like I brought my precious 2 children, 13 and an 11-year-old. Really, why can't they be allowed to be a good girl or a good boy and focus on their sports? Like my daughter Monica likes taekwondo, Julian likes soccer.
Robin, are we going to be having, in effect, a revolution in the Western world?
There is one starting. I think there are 2 million parents going to Parliament Hill this year. There was one in Ottawa, February 22nd. And who were the vulgarians then? It was people like Balcony Boy, Mr. McNougal, a liberal policy guy, senior policy guy, and he leaned over his balcony and he yelled at women, you guys are the B word, you guys are the C word. He was a filthy one. And this is a liberal government which has got low light intellects. He was talking to Mr. Colbert last night in Hollywood, La La Land. It could have been worse, one supposes, but he's really an airhead. My friend at National Post, Barbara Kay, called him a nullity. She said, Robin, he's a nullity, there's nothing there. So intellectual
But he's in
lightweights.
charge of us. So therefore, we're going to have a revolution if we don't have an election soon?
I think we're in it for another year. There's going to be a pantomime with either the Bloc or the NDP. The problem is with know-nothings is that in the middle group, they would have called them Girondins in France. There's always a Jacobin group like in the French Revolution. There's always a left-wing group, and we're seeing that with the hardening of the NDP. You call Trudeau weak. Mr. Jagmeet Singh is going for the jugular now, very sort of volatile with protesters. And they're saying we have to have a rearrangement of the power dynamic. So there's always a hard left pushing these people, and you don't have a Pierre Trudeau who was top 5. I didn't like what he stood for, but he was a top 5 prime minister, anybody's. And he would have said, you know, Jagmeet, you get the finger out of my face, just watch me. And he would have manhandled them. And I think you maybe admire John Turner more, but you admire Pierre Elliott Trudeau, I'm sure.
It gives us hope. Robin, thank you very much. This is the first. We're going to have sometimes something going over 3 minutes. It's going to be the extended 3 minutes, but it's important to hear what Robin's talking about. Canada is ripe. More than 3 minutes. To those of you who have subscribed and donated, a heartfelt thank you. You're keeping us on the air. If you're watching and you haven't, please try to do so, because 4 years ago we started this show because there needed to be independent analysis. Now more than ever, with the Online Harms Act, once that gets into law, it's been passed once by the House, there are going to be hundreds of bureaucrats censoring the news in Canada, censoring this show. We need to keep it on the air. Thanks for your support.